Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. I beat you to it.
It's super quick today. How you doing? Good?
I'm doing good, yeah. Notice anything different?
Haircut?
No, that hasn't happened yet. Next week. New glasses.
New glasses. There
Yeah.
we are. Good.
Green. They're green.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, look forward to seeing those in person.
Yeah, you will see.
In a few weeks' time. So that's good.
It's my ESG credentials.
Excellent. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, especially this week, underwriting, diversity, and leadership as well. So we're touching on a lot of points. We've got an interview coming up with Nicola Stacey, and we're going to be joined live by Ellie Spearman, who's a marketing director at the Insurance Network. But to kick things off, as always, let's start with the news. So, Ben, let me kick things off. So, yeah, lots of news this week. I wanted to start with the European Super League and the madness that was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It was crazy. I've even got a little clip of what it looked like. The website's still up, by the way, if you want to have a look. Got a logo. It's fun.
Why is Arsenal in it?
Yeah. I'll send you the WhatsApp of. Did you see Paddy Power had an excellent response to it? They're such a good company. I'll have to send you the link to the kind of the fluke, the fake Zoom meeting where they all decided to do it. It's absolutely nice. But yeah, that they came out of it pretty well. But yeah, it was amazing, really. Through, I don't know, whatever lens you want to look at it, it was a complete and utter cock up. And I think the reason that we pulled it out, or I pulled it out, as a interesting story in relation to insurance is, well, two reasons, mainly decision making and a kind of a lack of customer focus or fans focus in this sense here, and it smacks, and we've talked about this, Ben, before we came on air, about groupthink, and I think you actually pulled up a slide.
Yes. So groupthink has been around for a long time. It was first introduced by this chap Irving Janis, but the catalyst for it was John F. Kennedy's invasion of the Bay of Pigs in 1962, and the comment that Kennedy made after that fiasco was, "How could we have been so stupid?" So Janis looked into the decision-making that lay behind this. And I thought this had real resonance with both the ESG decision. I think was Steve Parish, the chairman of Crystal Palace, has said that they were in a kind of Zoom bubble, cooking all this up. And there's been all sorts of talks of conspiracy and greed and things like that. But I think that groupthink explains a lot of what probably has happened here. And obviously there's a long history to all this, which we won't go into here, but it has some resonance, and it certainly does with some of the things that Nicola Stacey from Chaucer is going to be talking about in the interview. Yeah. And basically, groupthink, obviously, as I think many of us know, is about groups of people who make poor decisions because they all kind of support each other almost subconsciously and don't actually see the risks that are emerging. So this is very relevant, obviously, to insurance and the risk industry. But there's a number of things that Janis pulls out here about stereotyping people. So this, your point about fans, that's all these fans, they're not interested in spending money, and we need new fans, different fans. The kind of pressure of decisions that are on them from now, shareholders and business decisions, unanimity, everybody talking with the same thing. But I wanted to draw out three really, which I thought probably played in here. This is my Bolton's take on the ESG, right? So groupthink. So, and Janice, and then I think these are a bigger lesson. So invulnerability was one, I think, that seems to have come through quite strongly. And this is a very big trait, I think, in football decision making, particularly FA, FIFA, and so on. This idea that, you know, they don't need to listen to anybody. So there's what Janice says is that the group shares an illusion of invulnerability that provides for them some degree of reassurance about obvious dangers and leads them to become over-optimistic and willing to take extraordinary risks. So obviously, that's what happened. And it says it also causes them to fail to respond to clear warnings of danger. And I suspect this is exacerbated by the fact they're in lockdown, they're having to do this in secret and do it on Zoom calls. So it's almost like this is the digital groupthink going on here. That's my new take on the Janice theory. The other one is rationale. So I've highlighted that there. So rationale is, according to Janice, victims of groupthink ignore warnings. They collectively construct rationalizations in order to discount warnings and other forms of negative feedback that, taken seriously, might lead the group members to reconsider their assumptions each time they recommit themselves to past decisions. So again, you constantly rationalize and build up your argument such that you just believe it, regardless. And third one is morality, which has been brought up a lot, I think. I think, the sort of appalled leaders of fan groups just cannot believe this. And of course, politicians dived into all of this, as they would. I think they shouldn't, but they did. But morality, victims of groupthink believe unquestionably in the inherent morality of their in-group. This belief inclines the members to ignore the ethical and moral consequences of their decisions. So I think those three really sort of probably sum up some of the things that maybe have gone on here. And why it seems to me to be about groupthink is the speed at which it fell apart. And particularly Chelsea, who pulled out very quickly, and I think Tottenham pulled out very quickly, having sacked their manager. But they did it so quickly, and they were kind of slightly on the outside. So it seems to me that they had kind of probably had some misgivings, weren't quite in the in-group. But as soon as they saw the catastrophe as it started to unfold, they pulled out really quickly, despite the fact they're probably going to have to pay a lot of money for that. So it's quite interesting. And then I think it's interesting then perhaps to think about some of the remedies for this which have come up, and inevitably they are about open thinking. Some of the things, again, that Nicola will be talking about in a while and that we've touched on, which is about questioning decisions, working things out. So perhaps the wider lesson, if there is one, for the insurance industry, and I think there is really about how do we make these decisions and consider all the different angles, and also actually diversity, because if we're all the kind of same sorts of people with the same sorts of views, simply becoming our own echo chamber, then that's a problem too.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. There are parallels with the way that in companies, organizations, institutions within insurance make when you look at them, poor decisions, not the good ones, that's different, but the poor decisions. And it just sprung to mind when we had Waleed on the show, and he was talking about his experience of they came up, some group within the organization came up with a new product which was to insure expensive watches. And they were going to go gung-ho. They were about to do a whole marketing campaign, spend a lot of money on it. And he basically asked the question and said, well, is there a market out there for this type of product? And they were going, well, there must be, because of X, Y, and Z, and all the things you've just been talking about, rationale and this kind of these groupthink type things. And he basically did a little bit of research and found out there was zero market for the product when they actually got close to the customer and actually asked them what they wanted. So I think it is. I find it fascinating. I'm sure it'll become a case study in MBAs in the future on how not to proceed and make decisions. And I think also for financial services and service sectors, it becomes critically important because there isn't anything tangible that you're actually delivering. It's all about the experience. And when these brands get tarnished, as they have been, and you think about Liverpool, and they're they're going to have to it's going to take years, decades probably to actually they will be able to shake this off. And you can imagine when fans come back, they're just going to taunt them about this for years to come. So
well, yeah, and I think the other thing, Jeremy, for the insurance industry is the whole reputational risk issue is a big one that's come up in many of the recent studies. I think the NMG's just had something out saying that's high up, and I think for the industry itself, and particularly the London market, is how our decisions made. And I do feel that we both feel probably that at times it does become its own echo chamber, and everybody kind of pats each other on the back about things and so on. But I think the good thing now is that there is much more competition and open competition. I think that's one of the good things that Lloyd's has done around technology, because in a way, competition does make you question things, because you have to respond and react and think about what others are doing. So both diversity and competition, I think, are potentially good, certainly good in the sense of not allowing that kind of institutional groupthink to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's move things on. So I've got a couple of other items as well. So I was at the Future at Lloyd's update on Wednesday, and as we said on the show, we're broadly supportive of the overall strategy and move. I think there was a couple of parts of that. I couldn't watch it all because it was 2 and a bit hours long, but there was a couple of things that came out of that and were later reported in the press that I couldn't quite get my head around. And it goes a little bit back to the kind of this customer centricity point that we've just been talking about, with some of the solutions that were being announced around. I think it was being, as you entered into the real world underwriting room, you would then be, or other people would be notified that you were then accessible and available to trade and things like that. And I was kind of thinking, well, is that a problem that before lockdown needed solving? I'm not entirely sure how much that adds, and I think I guess it's just a cautionary note, really, to say that when you're embarking on these transformation initiatives, if the solutions that are provided are not solving the problems that are evident to everybody, then you very quickly lose traction and momentum, and you lose people along the journey. And I just thought, even if they're just given some context to say, this is the data, this is what's been told, and so this is what it's solving, that would have been fine. But I don't know. I just missed that.
I think we regularly scratch our heads, don't we, at some of these things as to where they come from and what's the proposed benefit. And I think virtual underwriting room, which I hadn't heard about for a while, but it doesn't matter because I never understood it in the first place, was another of those, which is what's it supposed to do? What's it there to do? I think perhaps you could argue that I have sympathy with Lloyd's because it's a difficult time. You've got to say something. You've got to fill a bit of a gap, and particularly now as we come back. But you're right. I think that you sense sometimes that these things are a little bit gimmicky. They're just not really there to do anything other than just be a soundbite for somebody to say something's happening. Oh, and it happens to be digital, of course. But it's the fundamentals, I think, of the change to trading are going to be huge, and I've said already, I mean, my cards are on the table. I don't think the room has a future. I think it will happen within the offices and within the digital domain now going forward. And that doesn't matter. That's the way, that's progress, right? So we get on with it. But I think, there's inevitably going to be a bit of these things coming out that just keep it ticking over while they decide what they really want to do. I suspect that's where we are.
Right. And then the other big news, Aon Willis Times Watson seems to be progressing. There was quite a good article by Mark Grogan, who was basically sorry,
you can never get that right. Gagan,
yeah. What did I say?
Grogan, Claire Grogan.
No, right,
that's fine.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. But it was a pretty good piece that he wrote, just basically saying that despite all the compromises they'll have to make in terms of divestments to get it through the regulations, it's still a massive deal. and has big implications for the competitive landscape for years to come. So that's on the horizon, and I'm sure it's set to go through.
Yeah, so am I. I don't. Well, no way now. It's not going to go through. I think it's gone way too far. Of course, they will make the divestments. I think Mark is exactly on the money with his comments. It's about scale. It's exactly what we see in the data. Consolidation matters. It's why Greenberg was going for the Hartford. Scale really, really matters in most sectors, but it particularly matters in insurance at the moment. So if you can get dominance, particularly in a regulated market, you have incredible advantages over the rest of the market, and it's really compelling. It will be a bit messy. All these deals are, but to be fair, you have got good management. I think Mark made the point about which I was sort of had a wry smile about, is why did Willis sell up so easily, given the prize? And I think there's a bit of retrospective hindsight to that, but it's fine. I tend to agree with him. Yeah, I mean it is looking pretty good. And when you look at the numbers, the divestments are small compared with even the cost savings, to be honest. And you can divest stuff, but you've still got your brand and your name, and you can just rebuild it.
Yeah.
That's the point. Just rebuild it. It doesn't stop the dominance.
Yeah. Good. So we'll watch that space. Let's move things on. So we're going to get into our guest of the week. So you spoke to Nicholas Stacey, Chief Underwriting Officer at Chaucer, this week, and I'm going to bring in Ellie, who was also on the interview, because it'd be good to get her thoughts as well.
Hello.
Hi, Ellie. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thanks. Good to see you. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Ellie.
Hi, Ben.
Joining us today, and it was quite a long interview. So what we've done is to split it up into 4 kind of segments, if you like, short clips that we're going to play, and then we're going to kind of reflect on. The first one here is around the role of the underwriter. So let me bring in this first clip. If you turn cameras and mics off, and then we shall have a review afterwards.
So let me just ask you a bit about the role of underwriters. Obviously, we've just produced the 6th version of our report on leading underwriters. It's very popular. It gets a lot of comment. Everybody loves it because it's a who's who and it's about the people. But underlying this is a kind of more serious piece for us, which is really about what's happening to the roles of the underwriter going forward, and particularly how they're going to work with technology and everything else that's changing. So what's your sense that, now as we kind of hopefully come out of COVID and the pandemic and everything else that's going on with the changing market, of that role and how that job is changing for the underwriters?
Yeah, I mean, I think the role is changing. I think we'll all agree that the world is consuming more and more data. And when you have data, you need to be able to analyse it. So I think that data analysis part of the role is increasing, but also the sort of the portfolio management and the strategic thinking that goes along with that. I think it's fair to say the pace of change has accelerated enormously. And so from a behavioural perspective, we require people who are both resilient, but also adaptable and flexible, and able to adapt to that change, I guess. And finally, I think the expectation of the customer is higher. They want a better service. And so, the innovation piece and being creative, coming up with new products, that's all highly relevant today, maybe more so than ever before. And I don't see that going away. I just see that, accelerating even more.
And so that customer's perspective, is that coming via the brokers, or is it also sort of, do you feel that very kind of directly in terms of how you market and develop business for Chaucer?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's coming from brokers. They're always looking for ways to add value. So they're looking for us as insurers or reinsurers to help them add value to their clients. But I think it's also coming from just the world itself changing. We still have a massive protection gap across the world. And I think we constantly need solutions to fill that protection gap. And that goes from everything, you know, from the importance for really big companies down to, you know, consumers and very, very small clients. So I think there's a whole ton of change coming our way.
And more change now than perhaps you've ever seen before?
It feels like that. It feels like that. It feels faster. I think, I mean, if you just look at what's happened during COVID, you know, I think when I joined the industry 35 years ago, we were talking about graphic user interfaces and electronic trading, right? And it took so long. And then we went into lockdown and it transformed overnight because it was always possible because the technology was there, but people were slow to adopt, I think. And then when they had to, they adapted very quickly. So I think that just shows how fast things can change. And we just need to be constantly aware of that and ready for that. And if you're not ready, you know, you won't survive.
So it's always good to listen back, isn't it, and just reflect on what's been said. And I think it's just really interesting to hear those key elements around speed of change, but also what's driving that. And we've been talking about this a lot. You know, it's coming from customer, but it's also coming from innovation. And a lot of that innovation we talked about before is technology led. But those two things coming together really have just created this environment where the speed of change is so rapid, and it's very exciting, I suppose, as well to be in that situation.
Yeah, not a bad thing. I think it's good. I think it's also, Nicola's saying that it's a moment in time now that's the change is more than ever before. And that is perhaps not surprising to people, but I think it's important when you hear people of that seniority. And remember that Chaucer is part of China Re now. So this isn't just one person's opinion. It's coming from global type businesses in their views. So we can expect a lot of change, and it is exciting. Yeah, it's really good. It's great. It's opportunity. So we should embrace it.
And I was going to ask Ellie, because you are a lot younger than me and Ben. Let's put it like that. And so we're looking at it from a perspective where, you know, we've seen change happen, you know, through our careers, and the speed of change and kind of the incremental approach. And it certainly feels different the last 5 or 6 years, I would say. How does it feel for you as somebody who is just kind of in that world? You know, you've come into the workplace in this period. Does it feel fast, or does it just feel normal for you?
I mean, I guess it feels normal. Being obviously in the insurance sector and in a smaller company, change is easier to manage, isn't it? Because there's less people to get on board. I guess since being in this role, the change that I see and that I really am kind of invested in is the diversity. And I just think, I know that we're talking about data and technology and innovation in this clip, but it goes hand in hand with diversity of thought and, you know, different types of leaders to be able to bring in new ideas, to embrace new technology. Yeah,
definitely. And we'll hear more about that in the subsequent clips coming up as well. But let's bring in the next clip then, because I think you asked here, Ben, about the kind of important attributes for underwriters. So let's play the second clip.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you take someone like Richard Shropshire, credibility and technical expertise is a huge part of that, right? And that will never go away. That's the mainstay and the foundation of what we offer. But I think what's also important, and I would say honestly, this is why I think our three ladies are in the top 10 ladies spot, is it's about being an active listener, having that personality, that can-do attitude, the willingness to find solutions, but also, and I think that's where you see a lot more of the experienced underwriters in there. Brokers like underwriters that explain, that give a rationale. They don't like underwriters that just say yes or no. They need to understand why, because if they understand why, they can also help to find a solution. So I think that the more experienced people, the more confident people are, the more willing they are to explain their rationale. And I think that really is the key, honestly, in my view.
Again, that active listener, it's really interesting, isn't it? It was actually on Newsnight last night when they were discussing the influence of women on electronic music, and they had a big impact all through the development, but it was actually men that got the recognition because they were just seen. They had a higher profile than the women, but actually they were just as important in that whole thing. And one of the key elements that they said was interesting from their point of view was this active listening. So when they were in the back of the car, they could hear, the rumble of the engine and the road, and they could hear sounds and make music from that. And from those experiences, they could then put it into electronic loops and things like that. So it's really interesting. And I think in a business context, this active listening, proactive, as we've been talking about earlier in the news as well, I think it's critical if you're going to have make successful decisions and have a successful business.
Yeah. A couple of things out of that, listening back, were, one, I think there is a definite sense from Nicola, and I think I've heard this from many others now, that actually we're really looking at capability much more from the people who are in these jobs. And often I think in the market, status has been mistaken as being capability when it isn't. So just because an underwriter's got that title doesn't mean they're any good at what they do. And I think we're all very well aware of that now, but we're looking much more at beyond just the financial metrics into what is it that people are able to do. And there was a word that was just slightly hidden but important, which is help. And all the way through the work that we've done with underwriters, brokers have said that when that word, the H word, comes up, it seems to me to lift the relationship, because it's tricky to get risks placed sometimes. That's why Lloyd's in London is there. It is quite a big, it's quite a significant distribution chain. There's a communications challenge, but the collaborative element of the market is absolutely key. And I think Nicola makes a really important point that the best people, the most confident people, are the ones who do that best. Whereas I think sometimes it's been mistaken that the status of the great technical underwriter is the thing that really matters, and that allows them to sort of pronounce on things. And I think that's what's changing. So it's for the good. Yeah.
Very good. Any reflections on that, Ellie?
Just the main thing that I picked up from Nicola was trust in their ability, but then the client to trust that person, that underwriter as well. Just from a female point of view, you have that belief in yourself when you're in a male-dominated environment is going to be crucial, I think, to success. And having the support and asking for help should you need it, so important.
Yeah. The next clip, Ellie, I'm going to let you introduce, because you asked the question on the film. So I'll hand over to you.
Okay, so the next clip, I asked Nicola what are Chaucer doing to promote more diversity in Chaucer.
Here we go.
Yeah, look, we're doing lots of stuff. And I think if you want change, you have to set targets and you have to measure them. And that's something that we started doing a while ago. So we set targets for changing sort of diversity demographics, if you like. We reached those targets actually ahead of schedule, if you like. So we've made them multi-year targets now. So, for example, 50% of all our hires in 2020 were actually women. But we've now made them multi-year targets. I mean, it's not just about gender, obviously, it's about the total diversity range. But we've put them into people's managers' performance objectives as well. So it's actually linked to their bonus. They have targets and they need to meet those targets. And I think that's good. But it's also the softer stuff that you do as well, the behavioural change. So you mentioned one thing we've done, the return to work programme. Other things we've done, we've created a D&I group. This is volunteers across the company. It's not just about underwriting, it's anywhere within Chaucer Group. Volunteered for this. And their role really is to advise our CEO. You know, he wants to hear from them whether the things that we're doing are the right things and whether we should adapt them. And the idea is that you engage people and you listen to people at all levels throughout the company. And I think that's really the key to all this. You need the right tone from the top. And I think our board is very, very, very close to this. And if you have the right board, if you have the right tone from the top, you have the right overarching culture, which says it's okay to voice opinions. It's okay to ask questions. We're very, very open to that. And people then feel comfortable doing that. That's when you find out what you need to do. And this comes back to this active listening thing the whole time. You know, you do need to make sure we can try as many things as we like, but if it's not actually what people want, it probably won't be successful. And I think it's just having this, you know, it's not a once and done. I think so many times people think that you do something for a year and that's it. Oh, I fulfilled my objective. Happy days. Good on me. But this is generational. This is going to take years and years and years before it's fully equitable, I think. So it's a journey, but it's making sure that we continue on that journey and we continually check in and adapt it as we go. It's got to be iterative.
Sorry, I thought it was really interesting that they set targets and then linked it to bonuses. I thought, because quite often I think that has been the bit that's been missing in order to make sure that the behaviours come through. So I thought it was really good, and I think the key phrase there, the tone from the top, as well. That's what sets the environment and the culture within the organisation. So I thought they were really good points there. Ellie, I mean, what did you think listening back on reflection?
I mean, there were two things. Having an incentive, and whether that be, financial or earning more like time off, depending on what people kind of prioritize. If you find a way to tap into behavioural change, then I think it's a fantastic way to leverage it. Just as long as people really do learn, and you can sort of measure those changes, and it's not just something that's done for show. The second thing about the tone from the top, and Nicola just pointed out that there was a lot that can be done to sort of empower, younger people, but also people coming back to work. And it does start from the top, just going into a boardroom meeting and being able to shadow a director or being asked simply for your opinion makes a big difference in increasing diversity.
And I think that's that key thing, diversity in its broadest sense, and actually leads us into our next clip. I see Ben's having trouble getting back on, so I'll move on to the next clip where we ask, does diversity actually make a difference, and if so, how? So here's the next clip from Nicola.
Yeah, look, we're doing lots of stuff. And I think if you want change, you have to set targets and you have to measure them. And that's something that we started doing a while ago. So we set targets for changing sort of diversity demographics, if you like.
I just wanted to finish on on a couple of things very quickly. We've obviously produced this. I feel very sort of self-conscious about being a man producing a table. I know it's out of Gracechurch as a business, but it was my decision to produce a table of ranked women underwriters. I just wondered what your view of it. Just very quickly, my take is that the demonstration effect does work because you show kind of role models and you're able to have discussions like this, which would be difficult without the evidence being there. But I'd be interested in your view on it from the outside and seeing, obviously a success in that table, but what do you think of it as a mechanism, and is there anything else we can do?
I think it's super positive. I think recognition is really important, and recognition breeds confidence, and that, as I've said already today, I think is really important. Just even simply, somebody looks at the report, sees a female's name and thinks, oh, yeah, I never thought about her. I might vote for her next year. That's important stuff. And I think it just triggers something in the brain and makes people think about things a bit differently. So, I see it as really positive.
And to you, Ellie?
Yeah, I think it's empowering, and we should celebrate women, especially when there's not as many women in the industry. We'd like to, diversity has so many benefits.
As slick as ever we are on this show. Yeah, I haven't got the clip that I thought we were going to have. But anyway, I've played the last clip, which was about your kind of hesitance about running the women's survey, but actually got broad support from Nicola and Ellie, as you heard then. And I think generally speaking, it's all been positive. Oh, no sound, Ben. I'll come to you, Ellie, while Ben is fixing his sound. So, when you look at these surveys and they have a specific underwriter women's ranking, you said there it kind of empowers you as a woman in the sector. What do you think when you see the diverse people in there? Especially age range, I think, and Ben will point this out, I think that they are pretty young, that women's list. I mean, you said it feels empowered, but perhaps you can just give us a bit more insight about how that affects you and impacts you, I suppose.
Yeah, so when I say that it empowers me and hopefully other women too, to see someone else, a peer, similar to you, being able to succeed and kind of make it, then it does empower you, because you think, well, maybe I can do that as well, or I can do something that's in my own department in order to put myself out there more. And you were saying earlier in your news section that having that kind of competitiveness, I don't see that women should compete with one another, but seeing other women succeed pushes you, and I think it breeds creativity. How can I do it? But how can I do it my way? And that puts your own stamp on it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. No, sorry, Ben, still can't hear you. So, but I'm sure what Ben would say is that there is this. I suppose by having that out there, it allows us to have these conversations around diversity, and especially around diversity of thoughts, not just diversity of people and women and that type of thing. So
you can probably hear me now.
I can probably hear you now. Yes, I can.
Good. Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. It's almost like you're my ventriloquist's dummy.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I would have said. The only thing I would add to that, I think it grew out of some complaints, I suppose, from women over a few years who said it was just depressing to see league tables, ranking tables of underwriters with no women in it. And I don't think it was true that there were no women in there at all, but there were very few, and that is the balance in the market. It was reflecting that. So I think the demonstration effect actually is quite important, and it's not just us that's using it. I think people are using it in all sorts of other areas. It does seem to be working. I suppose there are always going to be criticisms of it, but generally speaking, I think, and Ellie and Nicola supported this, is that for now it seems to work okay, right? And I think that was Nicola's point about we evolve and we test and we try things and we see whether they really make progress. I don't think this is about principle or theory or anything else. I think it's about being practical and making things just work and checking in that we're all comfortable with it. And I've done a lot of that. I have spoken to a lot of people. I get the odd brickbat, obviously, still. Whatever you do, whichever way you decide to go, it's the nature of the territory, and I don't really care about that. But I do care that we get it right for most people, and we see progress, and we measure that.
Yeah, it was really good. So thank you, Ben and Ellie, for conducting that interview. I really enjoyed it. I think we're going to put the whole interview up, aren't we? It's going to be on your site, and I'll put it onto the Burgess and Bolton site as well, and we'll probably do a bit of promotion so you can watch the whole interview.
Yeah, it's definitely worth listening to the whole interview. I think Ellie did a great job, definitely, and you could tell probably from those clips, there's a really good rapport actually between Ellie and Nicola, just talking about some of the things, and I quite rightly took a back seat on that, and that's exactly what we wanted, out of the interview, and I think it shows, how these conversations should be had in the future.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Let's move things on. Let's find out what everyone's doing this weekend. It's going to be a glorious weekend. Any plans? I'm going to start with Ellie first.
Just dinner with my partner's parents. Really?
Whoa.
So that will be nice.
Yeah, it will be. It's I think we've got people coming around. When I say people, it'd be my son's mates coming around to play in the garden. So I might take them swimming. I took them swimming last week, and they enjoyed that. So it was good to get out in the sunshine.
Yeah, I've got football tomorrow.
Yeah,
that's still going on. It's going to run into the middle of the summer, I think. The kids football, and then in-laws around on Sunday. I think we're going to sit them in the garden though.
Yeah,
which I have gives me a slight sort of feeling of Schadenfreude. It's quite good sitting them out there while I'm inside.
Yeah, I just got to go and get something. 20 minutes later, yeah.
I think it's going to be quite warm though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be lovely. I think it's going to be good. Right, thanks for tuning in. Another slick show from us. I hope you enjoyed it, and we shall see you next week. Oh, we should probably trail that we've got a special guest on next week.
Very special.
Very special. So
very special.
Make sure you
really good.
Tune in for that. Right, thanks everybody. Thanks Ben. Thanks Ellie.
Yeah.
Have a
nice Ellie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Enjoy all. Bye.
Bye.